Hello, this is Naima Tryman, and today is day 9 of the blog series that I'm doing on my book, Praying for Peace, A Journey to Serenity. At this point, we are now in the summer of 2001. I've just lost a scholarship to college and returned home to Montclair, embarrassed. But, just trying to figure out a way to regroup. So that summer, I only did a couple of things. It was really basic. I coached basketball, so in the morning I would go to basketball camp, or I think the first week of the summer was basketball camp. The rest of the summer we just had workouts in the morning for the team. The girls that I had started off coaching for AAU were now entering freshman and sophomore year in high school. So we would do workouts in the morning, and then I would go to the pool where I worked, and I would lifeguard for 4, 5, 6 hours, and then coach them in summer league games at night. And that's basically kind of how things went. A lot of times they would come and hang out with me at the pool, and on the weekend sometimes I'd hang out with them a little bit. I think we went on a couple camping trips and movies, and they were like my little sisters. I grew on them and they grew on me. A lot of them were either only children or were the oldest, so they didn't have big sisters. And I had younger sisters, but they didn't play. I didn't have a lot in common with my little sisters, and they didn't play basketball, and we never really had that connection. So I had a group of girls that kind of looked up to me, and I adored them, and it was the beginning of a relationship that in a lot of those relationships I still hold and I still maintain, and they're now adults. Went to the wedding of one this summer, and another one got married. Now that I'm in California, I couldn't afford to go back twice, but they're all grown up now, and it's really humbling to know that I had any kind of part in the lives of these young girls that have grown up to be such respectable and responsible young women. So anyway, that's what I did in the daytime that summer, and at night it was me and my friend Kelly, and we didn't necessarily have plans every night, but I would go home after basketball games, and I would shower, and she'd come back and pick me up, and we'd go to the liquor store, and we'd go to the weed spot, and we would drink and smoke. Sometimes we'd go into the city, sometimes we'd go to Jersey City, sometimes we'd go bowling, sometimes we'd just go find somewhere to play. A lot of times we'd just go find somewhere to play spades. That was a big thing for me, was playing spades. And that's how that summer went, man. And she had just transferred schools, so she, was home for that fall. So for the next 6 months, really, even when I started in school, I hung out with her every night, and we got hammered every night. It's a miracle that we didn't get into more trouble than we did, because we were drunk every night, we were high every night. So the school year started, and I had now changed my major to just math. Dropped the sociology and dropped the education part. I think I was going to be an actuary. I think, hopefully it's starting to become clear by now that I didn't have any idea what I was doing with my life. I was just trying to do the next right thing somehow, and I was really lost in a lot of ways. I'd always been pretty good at math, so I was gonna be an actuary, I think, and I can't even say that I started off strong. I didn't have a real interest in school. I just didn't know what else to do with my life. So I would go to school in the morning, and I was given the responsibility of preseason workouts for the girls. So after school, I was to meet them, and they were, supervise them doing their running and plyometrics and ball handling and anything to get them prepared for the season. And because I wasn't driving at the time, and with the way the bus schedules ran, if I went to my second class, I wasn't going to be there in time to start them. And coaching basketball and being there for those kids was way more important to me at that time than my education was. After a while, I just stopped going to that second class, and by the time the semester ended, I got 1 C and 3 Fs. And I don't even know how I got that C, quite honestly. School it wasn't a priority for me, and I was really just treading water. I was really just trying to keep my head above water somehow. I didn't know what I wanted out of my life. I like coaching basketball. I wanted to coach basketball, but in order to officially coach basketball, I had to get to 60 credits, and it was like, it didn't seem like that big of a goal to get 60 credits, but it just, I felt like I had a backpack full of boulders on my back, like every step I took was so exhausting and so hard and so difficult, like I was in a wind tunnel or something. I coached that season, and the girls were starting to get better, and I really enjoyed coaching. I hadn't really dated anyone, and my friend Zakia brought a girl with her to one of the basketball games, and I really liked her, and I didn't want to go back down this road. I'd already confessed my lesbian relationship to a priest, and I couldn't fight it too much. And at this point, Zakia had transferred to a school in Jersey City, and that's where this friend was from. And I started going out there to hang out in that spring, and lo and behold, we started dating. She wasn't gay, but she was experimenting, and she decided to experiment with me. I fell in love. I have a history of falling in love in about a week, repeatedly, because I didn't know what love was. I didn't have it modeled in my house. There wasn't a whole lot of love of anything except for control, as far as my father was concerned. And I got my idea of love from movies, and I thought that you met that person that you knew, and you made eye contact, and that was you fell in love. And so we dated for a couple months. I was driving my father's van a lot. He had a car and a conversion van, so I used to drive the van a lot. And so that spring, I went back and forth to Jersey City. I still hung out with my girls some, hung out with Kelly, and did not go to class. And again, I got a C and 3 Fs. And I think the only way I got that C was it was a history class, and the grade, there were 3 exams, and he took the average of the best 2 out of 3. And so I took one test, and I did really well, and I think he ended up, somehow he changed that to it being like the highest of 2 grades. So when I realized that, I don't even think I took the other test. I'd gotten a 75 or something. It was a multiple choice test, and that's how I got that C. And I failed everything else. So I was summarily dismissed from Montclair State. I kind of say this with pride, because it's almost, you got to really, really work to, or not work. It takes effort to be in college and leave with a .474 GPA, and that's how I felt out of college, with a .474 GPA, and that was the end of my college career for a long time. So now I didn't know what the hell I was going to do. This was 3 different colleges in 4 years that hadn't worked for me. I knew I wasn't stupid, but I couldn't make it happen in school. That bottle was literally calling my name, and I was depressed, but I didn't realize I was depressed. When I look back on it now that I understand depression, I get it, but I didn't understand why I couldn't be sober. I didn't think there was, that, it was that bad of a deal, especially when I was lifeguarding, and I was, I had money in my pocket. I didn't have a car, so I wasn't crashing cars yet. I was having fun. I was being 21. That's what kids do, and but I didn't know what I was going to do, and I went back to lifeguarding that summer, and my teammate from my freshman year in college was living in Florida, and was a bartender, and had a 3-bedroom house with like 2 spare bedrooms. And my sister hadn't fared terribly well in college either, and she didn't have a whole bunch of options, and so we were going to move to Florida. My friend said that we could stay with her. She could get me a job. She was a bartender. The guy that owned her bar owned a gay bar down the street. I could be a bartender there. They would train me on the spot, same hours, so I wouldn't have to worry about transportation. She'd drop me off, pick me up when the night was over. We could sleep in every day, tan in the afternoon, and then go to work at night. And there's no idea. There's no doubt in my mind that I would be dead. When I think about all the trouble that I had, that I'll soon be talking about, in New Jersey, with a support system, with a job, in the community that I loved, and all the struggles that I still had when it came to drinking and depression, there is no doubt in my mind that if I went to Florida, I would have become, I'd be dead. I'd be dead. I wouldn't have had the resources I needed. And eventually I probably would have gotten into hardcore drugs. I was always too scared to deal with anything more than marijuana because I know my personality is very addictive. But I think at some point I just would have just kind of been like, why not? What do I have to lose at this point? 2 weeks before we were all set to leave, we were going to wait to the end of the lifeguarding season, whatever. 2 weeks before we were set to leave, my mother, who worked for the township, was at work, and the township manager walked up to her and said, "Is your daughter still interested in becoming a firefighter?" That sentence, that saved. I mean, it absolutely saved my life. I wasn't crazy about the idea of becoming a firefighter at the time, like in and of itself, but the idea that I was going to have an option after all the screwing up that I did, I was ecstatic about. So when she called me and she asked me, I was like, yes, absolutely, yes, hell yes, So what do I have to do, So I told my friend I wasn't going to be coming, and I wrote a letter saying that I'd like my place on the list to be reinstated. The only other thing that happened at that point was I went on vacation with my dad and my nephew and his mom. We went to the Bahamas, and I drank every night as usual. And I got invited to go to a gay club. This guy looked at me, kind of knew I was gay. He said, "Hey, you want to go to this party?" I'm like, "Sure." We'd rented scooters, and I misunderstood his directions, and somehow I ended up on some back road with no lights. And some homeowner decided to put speed bumps in the middle of the road with no warning, no signs, nothing. And I'm on this dark road and I'm lost, but I'm also drunk, so I'm not rationalizing well. And instead of driving like 10, 15 miles an hour, I'm doing like 35 or 40 around these, curves and bends. So I came around the bend and I hit the speed bump and I went flying head over heels. And I mean, I did one of those like Magnum PI rolls where I just rolled like 10 times. My jewelry went flying off. My clothes were torn. I had blood all over the place. I hit my head hard, and I split my elbow open. It doesn't look so bad now, but at the time, I mean, the scar was more like that. And then there was abrasions around it. I cut my palm open. I was afraid to go to the hospital in a foreign country, but if I was home, I would have went to the hospital. I'm sure I needed stitches. I mean, it was a mess for a long time, but I went back home. We're back to the hotel. I got some peroxide. I cleaned it out. I had to dig the gravel out of my arm. It was disgusting. And we were there for 2 more days, but I just stayed in bed and drank the rest of the time. I've had enough concussions in my life to know what one feels like without a doctor telling me, and that was without a doubt a concussion. So that brings the summer of 2002 to a close. The next chapter, we'll talk about the beginning of my career as a firefighter, and also the beginning of my real unraveling. You think failing out of college was unraveling, but quite honestly, it hadn't even begun yet. Take care.